Have you ever wished you were never born? It's a dark thought, a whisper of despair that many people experience at some point in their lives. This feeling, the desire to have never existed, can be deeply unsettling. It challenges our fundamental understanding of life, purpose, and the human condition. But what drives this desire? Why do some yearn for a state of non-being? In this exploration, we'll delve into the complex and often taboo subject of the desire to never exist. We'll uncover its philosophical roots and psychological implications. We will differentiate between two seemingly similar but distinct desires: the desire to have never been born and the desire to not exist. While both reflect a profound dissatisfaction with life as we know it, they stem from different psychological and philosophical underpinnings. This exploration isn't about glorifying despair or encouraging nihilism. Instead, it's about understanding the human psyche in its entirety, confronting uncomfortable truths, and shedding light on the darker corners of our existence. Just as we seek to understand joy and fulfillment, we must also grapple with the depths of human suffering and the desire to escape it. By venturing into these challenging territories, we gain a more profound understanding of ourselves and the human experience. So let's begin by turning to the insightful framework of Jacques Lacan, a renowned psychoanalyst whose work offers a unique perspective on these desires. Jacques Lacan, a French psychoanalyst, developed a complex and influential theory of the human psyche. His work provides a valuable lens through which we can examine the desires to have never been born and to not exist. Lacan's concepts of the real, the symbolic order, and the death drive offer profound insights into these desires. The real is raw existence, while the symbolic order is the world of language and culture. Lacan believed entry into the symbolic order is traumatic, creating a fundamental lack within us. This lack drives the desire to return to a pre-symbolic state or non-being. By exploring these concepts, we understand the psychological underpinnings of these desires. The desire to have never been born finds fertile ground in philosophical pessimism. Pessimism argues that life is inherently flawed, suffering outweighs joy, and existence is a burden. David Benatar contends that coming into existence is always a harm. His work challenges our assumptions about the value of life and the ethics of procreation. Antinatalism questions the morality of procreation, arguing that non-existence is preferable to the risk of suffering. Proponents like David Benatar believe it's wrong to subject others to life's inherent risks. Critics argue it overlooks human flourishing and the value of positive experiences. Antinatalism's focus on suffering makes it a compelling framework for understanding the desire to have never been born. Echoes of Eastern thought. In Buddhism, dukkha or suffering is central. Life's cycle of birth, death, and rebirth is driven by desire and attachment. The goal is nirvana, liberation from this cycle, achieving peace and the cessation of suffering. This reflects a deep understanding of impermanence and the human condition. Trauma's echo. Trauma can leave an indelible mark on the psyche, leading to a profound sense of being wronged by existence itself. Childhood trauma creates a fundamental sense of insecurity. Chronic illness can erode the will to live, leading to a sense that existence itself is a burden. Understanding trauma's role is crucial for offering compassion. The abyss of despair. Despair, a profound sense of hopelessness and a loss of faith in the possibility of a meaningful future, often intertwines with the desire to have never been born. This despair can manifest as a pervasive feeling of emptiness, a sense that life is devoid of purpose or joy. When despair takes hold, the world can feel like an oppressive weight, and the future can seem like an endless expanse of suffering. In these moments of darkness, the desire to have never been born can emerge as a desperate attempt to escape the unbearable weight of existence. It's a yearning for a state of oblivion, a release from the pain and futility that permeate one's experience of being alive. This despair can be further compounded by a sense of being fundamentally flawed or unworthy of love and belonging. Individuals struggling with these feelings may believe that their existence is inherently burdensome to others, that they are a source of pain and disappointment. This sense of worthlessness can fuel the desire to have never been born, as it reinforces the belief that non-existence would be a kindness, both to oneself and to the world. Addressing this despair requires empathy, understanding, and a willingness to sit with the individual in their darkness without judgment or attempts to force premature hope. Alienation, a world out of sync. Alienation is a profound sense of disconnection, feeling fundamentally different and unable to find one's place in the world. This can manifest as social isolation, difficulty connecting, or an existential feeling of not belonging. It leads to profound loneliness and a belief of never fitting in. Creating inclusive spaces is crucial for combating this alienation and fostering belonging. The real, a wound that never heals. To grasp Lacan's perspective on the desire to have never been born, we must delve into the real. The real is a realm beyond language, raw and primal. It represents a state before birth, before language. This separation creates a fundamental wound within the psyche. The desire to return to this state fuels the yearning to have never been born. The longing for the pre-symbolic. The desire to have never been born represents a yearning for the pre-symbolic state, before language and social structures imposed their order. It's a longing for a return to the womb, a state of undifferentiated unity. In this pre-symbolic state, there is no separation between self and other. The infant exists in blissful ignorance, its needs met. The entry into the symbolic order shatters this unity. We are cast out of the Garden of Eden, navigating a world of rules and expectations. This transition can be traumatic, leaving a longing for the lost paradise of the pre-symbolic. The desire to have never been born is a rejection of the symbolic order that feels alienating. It's a yearning for a state of wholeness and unity. This desire highlights the paradoxical nature of the human condition. We are symbolic creatures reliant on language and culture. Yet this reliance creates a sense of alienation, a yearning for a pre-linguistic state. Objet petit a, the ghost of wholeness. Central to Lacanian desire is the object cause of desire. This elusive object represents the lost wholeness from the pre-symbolic realm. Imagine the infant at the breast, a moment of perfect unity. This unity is short-lived as the infant recognizes its separateness. The object symbolizes the lost unity driving our desires. Nihilism, the echo of meaninglessness. Nihilism confronts the perceived meaninglessness of existence head-on. It challenges our assumptions about purpose, value, and the human condition. Nihilism posits that life is without objective meaning or intrinsic value. This perspective can be unsettling, stripping away comforting narratives. For some, it's liberating. For others, it leads to despair. Existentialism, the burden of choice. Existentialism emphasizes the freedom and responsibility of the individual to create their own meaning. This freedom comes with a heavy burden. We must choose our values and actions in a world without predetermined guidelines. This radical freedom is both exhilarating and terrifying. Existentialism challenges us to embrace the responsibility of creating our own meaning. Distinction from antinatalism ceasing versus never beginning. It's crucial to distinguish the desire to not exist from the antinatalist position explored earlier. While both perspectives grapple with the complexities of suffering and the value of life, they diverge in their fundamental focus. Antinatalism centers on the ethics of bringing new life into existence, arguing that it is morally wrong to subject another being to the potential for suffering. The desire to not exist, on the other hand, is a personal yearning for the cessation of one's own existence. It's a response to the individual's experience of suffering, their sense of meaninglessness, or their alienation from the world. While antinatalism focuses on preventing future suffering, the desire to not exist grapples with the suffering of the individual in the present moment. This distinction highlights the deeply personal nature of the desire to not exist. It's not a philosophical stance on the ethics of procreation, but an internal struggle rooted in individual pain, despair, or a profound sense of dissonance with the world. Understanding this distinction is crucial for approaching these desires with empathy and compassion. While antinatalism sparks philosophical debate about our responsibilities to future generations, the desire to not exist demands a more personal and compassionate response, one that acknowledges the individual's suffering and seeks to address the underlying psychological and existential pain. The weight of emptiness. The desire to not exist often stems from a profound sense of emptiness, a feeling that life lacks inherent meaning or purpose. This emptiness can manifest as a pervasive feeling of boredom, apathy, or a lack of motivation to engage with the world. Individuals experiencing this emptiness may find it difficult to connect with their emotions, their relationships, or their work. They may feel like they are going through the motions of life without truly living, their days devoid of genuine joy or fulfillment. This sense of emptiness can be further exacerbated by societal pressures to achieve, to be productive, and to project an image of happiness and success. When these external expectations feel at odds with one's internal state of emptiness, it can lead to a sense of profound alienation and a desire to escape the perceived futility of it all. The desire to not exist in this context can be seen as a yearning for release from the weight of this emptiness, a longing for a state of non-being where the pressure to feel, to achieve, and to conform no longer exists. Addressing this emptiness requires a compassionate exploration of the individual's internal landscape, a search for the root causes of their despair, and a recognition of the societal factors that may be contributing to their sense of meaninglessness. When life feels like a burden, life's challenges can feel overwhelming, leading to a desire to escape. Loss, stress, and pressure can make existence feel unbearable. These feelings often stem from deep emotional distress. Professional support is crucial for those experiencing this. The death drive, a yearning for dissolution. Lacan's concept of the death drive, also known as thanatos, offers a unique perspective on the desire to not exist. Unlike the common perception of a death wish as a straightforward desire for self-annihilation, Lacan viewed the death drive as a more nuanced and complex force within the human psyche. For Lacan, the death drive represents a fundamental drive toward dissolution, a yearning to return to a state of pre-existential non-being. It's a pull towards the inorganic, the inanimate, the state before life emerged with all its complexities and contradictions. This drive is not necessarily a conscious desire for death, but rather an unconscious force that can manifest in various ways, from self-destructive behaviors to a fascination with death and decay. The desire to not exist in this context can be seen as an expression of the death drive, a longing to escape the pain and limitations of the symbolic order and return to a state of pre-subjective unity. It's a yearning to undo the separation from the real, to dissolve the ego, and to merge back into the primordial soup from which we came. This desire, however, is ultimately futile. The death drive is a force that can never be fully satisfied, a constant pull towards an unattainable state of non-being. The symbolic order's frustrations, a cage of words. The symbolic order, with its emphasis on language, social norms, and cultural expectations, can feel like a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it provides us with the tools to communicate, to understand our world, and to form meaningful connections with others. On the other hand, it imposes limitations, creates hierarchies, and can generate a profound sense of alienation. For Lacan, the symbolic order is inherently flawed and incomplete. It can never fully capture the complexities of the real, and its attempts to do so inevitably lead to misunderstandings, misinterpretations, and a sense of being misunderstood. This frustration with the symbolic order can contribute to the desire to not exist. When language fails to express our deepest experiences, when social norms feel suffocating, and when cultural expectations seem impossible to meet, the desire to escape the symbolic order altogether can become overwhelming. The desire to not exist in this context is a yearning for a realm beyond language, beyond social constraints, beyond the limitations of the symbolic order. It's a longing for a state of pure being, unmediated by the distortions and frustrations of symbolic representation. Trauma's echo, the repetition of non-being. Lacan's understanding of trauma offers another layer of insight into the desire to not exist. For Lacan, trauma is not simply a past event, but an enduring wound on the psyche, a rupture in the symbolic order that continues to shape our perceptions and experiences. Trauma can create a sense of fundamental insecurity, a belief that the world is inherently unsafe and that we are perpetually vulnerable to harm. This sense of vulnerability can lead to a desire to retreat from the world, to withdraw into ourselves, and to ultimately escape the possibility of further pain. The desire to not exist in this context can be seen as a repetition compulsion, an unconscious attempt to master the trauma by repeating it in a controlled way. By wishing for non-existence, the individual seeks to preemptively undo the trauma of existence itself. It's a way of saying, if I cease to be, then I can no longer be hurt. This desire, while understandable as a coping mechanism, ultimately prevents the individual from processing and healing from the trauma. It keeps them trapped in a cycle of repetition, unable to fully engage with life and move towards a place of wholeness. Between yearning and acceptance, the desires to have never been born and to not exist reveal profound truths about the human condition. They highlight our capacity for immense suffering and a deep-seated yearning for wholeness. Lacanian psychoanalysis provides a framework for understanding these desires. We are beings caught between the pre-symbolic realm and the symbolic world. The desire to have never been born speaks to a longing for pre-symbolic unity. It's a confrontation with the real, both terrifying and enticing. The desire to not exist grapples with the limitations of the symbolic order. It's a yearning for escape from social expectations and perceived meaninglessness. Both desires reflect a struggle with the fundamental lack defining the human condition. We yearn for a wholeness that always eludes our grasp. Finding meaning in the shadows. Confronting unsettling desires can be a catalyst for growth and transformation. By acknowledging our despair, we open ourselves to a deeper understanding of humanity. This awareness can fuel compassion and a desire to alleviate suffering. It prompts us to question societal expectations and seek genuine joy. The journey through shadows requires courage and compassion. In these dark corners, we discover our greatest strengths and insights. Embracing both light and shadows allows us to live more authentically. In this final chapter, we explore ways to overcome feelings of despair and find purpose and meaning in life. Here are some tips. 1. Seek professional help. A therapist or counselor can provide valuable support. 2. Connect with others. Building strong relationships can provide a sense of belonging. 3. Engage in activities that bring joy and fulfillment. 4. Practice mindfulness and meditation to stay grounded. 5. Set small, achievable goals to build a sense of accomplishment. Remember, finding meaning is a journey, and it's okay to seek help along the way.